So today's date is the 12th of July 2026, and you join me in the tropical rainforest of Mersbrook, Sheffield. So what I want to talk about today is about the future of our country, and I'll warn you now, it's dystopian. So and there are a certain number of factors that are at play here which lead me to this conclusion. Firstly, we have as you may be aware of, in this country, we have a bit of an issue with mass immigration at the moment. And despite what the incumbent government tell us, all they're ever doing is sticking plasters over the problem, or at least claiming that they're doing. Anyway, that's another story. But the fact is, who do immigrants vote for when they come into the country? Well, initially, they might not have the right to vote. They have to become a British citizen to actually get the right to vote. But once they do, who they're going to vote for, at least in the short term, it's going to be left-wing parties. It's going to be Labour or the Greens, probably more so the Greens, because the Greens are, if anything, more left-wing than the Labour Party at the moment. So, and why are they going to do that? Because immigrants aren't going to come into the country and vote for the Conservatives or right-wing parties, because right-wing parties protect the interests of the incumbent capitalist taxpayers, whereas left-wing parties are the parties who financially support, if not prefer, immigrants, coming into the country. They don't like capitalists, even though it's those people that they rely on to get taxes from in order to give money to the people that they like. So we've got an ever-increasing amount of, vast waves of people coming into the country, and they're not actually paying tax, income tax. Yes, obviously they're paying VAT on products. So then you have a scenario where more and more people coming in are not contributing to the economy. In addition, not in the short term, except in the long term they might, and their descendants probably will as well. But certainly for the foreseeable future, in the short term, they're going to be claiming benefits. They're not going to be actually financially contributing, because they're not really in a position to. And certainly when they come in as refugees, they have no recourse to public funds, but the taxpayer still actually gives them money, a subsistence amount to live on. So that's one factor. Now the other factor is, because the country's going down the toilet, you've got people who are picking up on this, the wealthy, rich people who are leaving the country because they're getting taxed too much. That's why they're going to live, in the Channel Islands or other tax havens, So they're not contributing themselves because they're in another country. And that's happening more and more. So then you've got that as a factor. But then you've also got the rise of technology. So less and less jobs are being done by actual people. They're being done by machines, or they're being done by the internet. And what happens? So then that puts people out of jobs. I mean, look at supermarkets. Time goes on. It's like the local Tesco where I go shopping. More and more self-service checkouts. Less and less people on the tills. So we've got unemployed people who can't get jobs because there's no jobs out there, because it's being done by technology, because employers want to save money on paying people wages by investing in technology that they don't need to pay people for. So then you've got people who can't contribute income tax because they can't get a job, but in addition they have to receive money from the government in order to survive, in the form of benefits. So that's even more money that we're going to have to invest in welfare. So you got that. So where's it going to go? Well, the more people that come into the country, and this was Tony Blair's plan, the more likely they're going to be to vote for left-wing parties. So you've got the left-wing parties who are going to get more confident and audacious about some of the policies that they come out with, making them even more left-wing. And then there's going to be nobody around, to actually pay the welfare benefits, because they won't be either in jobs or they'll have disappeared to another country. They'll have jumped ship because it's a sinking one. So that's the future. So basically, the country is going to end up going downhill economically. And the other factor you've got as well is the fact that we don't produce anything anymore, at least far less than what we used to. So, the industry that we have is now being done in countries like India and China, which are up and coming economies, because they're the ones that are producing stuff. We are not. Meanwhile, we're pretending like we're still one of the strongest nations on earth, like it's still the British Empire, when all we're being done is propped up on debt. It's like analogous to, a wealthy family or well-to-do family living on a nice estate, living in a nice part of the city. They lose their jobs and they actually rely on debt. They actually borrow money in order to keep up with the Joneses and make it look to all the neighbours that they're still doing well. That's basically our country at the moment. And it's unsustainable. So it is a sinking ship. There's more and more people trying to jump onto it. It's going to sink and sink. And eventually, once it's just a kind of vacant husk, and there's nothing left, then all the people who jumped onto it are going to jump back off again, and nobody's going to want to come to this country anyway. So that's the reality. So we're going to end up a poor country. Simple as that. So if you're happy to stay here and put up with that, fair enough. Otherwise, jump ship.